So that's how I ended up going into accounting.
Sure. Yeah. So that time where you're looking at online prospectus, right? And you're looking
Yeah.
at the different things that you need to do. What guided you? What was the process that you went through? Like, okay, there's BCom this, there's B accounting this. What was the process that guided you now that you knew exactly what you were doing?
I mean, for me, like I said, it was more of this is what I wanted. This is what the dream was. When you're putting in the work, this is what you're promised to say. You're gonna be this. You're gonna be a CA, and this is what you're gonna do. And so, even when you're looking at the prospectus, I was not looking at it to look for other options. I was looking at it to say which one is in accounting and which one could lead me in this direction. And so that is what, so I had a narrow view of it. So my mind was not
Yeah.
open to the different options that were there. Only once I was at varsity was I like, but wait, this is what I really find interesting. And this seems a bit more appealing to who I am and in sync with my personality. And so the moment where choice became a factor was more at varsity than it was before varsity. Because before varsity, it was like, this is what you're gonna do, and this is it. This is the dream, you know.
Yeah. So while making that choice, I know, like, especially for African individuals, when you made that choice, what were you thinking about in the back of your mind to say, okay, this is where I'm looking. I'm looking towards entrepreneurship. How did you sell that message to your family?
Um, this secret agent thing is really, you're gonna see that is really more of a trend, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't sell it to them initially, right? I didn't sell it at all. I did it I did it low key. So what I did was I was at school, I was studying, I made sure the grades were up, right? And then on the side, I'd try start a business, because there are a lot of, especially when I got to varsity, there are a lot of things that I tried out. I was like, oh, can I open an online store? Can I do this? Started experimenting with building website, e-commerce sites, and all of that. And it was more, for me, it was more of a private thing, right?
Yeah.
And because the marks were doing good, no one was concerned, right?
Sure.
The challenge
Yeah.
came when the marks now started dipping. Like,
Ah.
say the marks are dipping, you're not playing sports. Like, what's happening? Like, what's really, do you get what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
then from that point, it was where, and it came at a time where I felt that what I was doing actually had a bit of footing, right? Where I could say, okay, so this is what's actually happening. This is what's happening in my life. I'm doing this, but I'm also involved in this, and I'm also involved in this, right? And that's the moment. But had it not been for that moment where now you'd see a performance dip, trust, it would still be under the carpet.
Sure. Now this is
Because
very, yeah.
I mean, like, how it is, especially coming from an African family, right? A business is not really seen, or entrepreneurship is not really seen as something you can pursue. It's seen as a side thing. It's seen as a chance, as a risk. And in some instances, it is sort of shunned upon, right? To say, like, why are you wasting time in something that you're not sure of, right? Whereas you could do one, two, three, and this is how it would turn out, right? So people are more sold the linear idea, which is not a bad idea, but I mean, it goes with who you are and what you want in life. To say, listen, this is a straight line. You go to school, you get your qualification, you go to work, you get money. It's simple, right? But then there's that gap between that and a person and what they want out of life, right? So, I mean, for me, it would have been that. I mean,
Yeah. Sure. So now let's go to the point where you're doing very great at school. This is like the peak of your academic career. I see that you also got merit awards at school as well. What was the gap? Because there's a lot of recognition and a lot of academic fame that comes with being a top achiever at school. Like all of the
Yeah,
people in class are like, that guy's the guy, you know. All of the people in other departments like, did you hear about that guy? That guy's the best. He's killing it in his department, right?
yeah.
But that shift that eventually did cause the dip. What was that gap? What was the thing you were saying? Okay, I'm getting good grades, but
I mean, for me, the gap was always fulfillment, right? So I was, especially at the start of my varsity career, right? I was doing really well academically, and then, but it was not really in sync with what I wanted, right? Because I had initially enrolled for accounting science, right, which would take me the CA stream. But then, like first 2 years, then you realize this is not really what I want, right? And now this thing at the end was that I had an obligation to work for a firm for 3 years after I complete, right?
sure.
And a lot of people, I know I consulted a lot of people for opinions on this. I consulted my lecturers, I consulted mentors, and the responses were different. You know, I actually had one individual telling me how ungrateful I am for wanting to pursue something outside of what has already been invested in, right? But going back to what you want out of life, for me, having to go into corporate for 3 years immediately after I complete without having the option to do something else, for me, it was quite, I don't want to use the word depressing, but it felt a bit like a cage, right? And now it also affects to say, like, why am I doing this? So I started questioning the why. Why am I performing so well only to get to a place where I don't want to go? Right. And so that became the gap. The gap became I really I really lost the why of doing it, because I found out that the reason I entered or the reason I started, my why was not solid. I wanted to go in because of the perception that I was sold to say this is what you're gonna do and this is how it's gonna impact you. You're gonna get this, you're gonna get that, you're gonna get recognition, you're gonna get this prestige from being a chartered accountant and all of that. And so now when that all starts falling out to say, well, really, I don't want the end goal. Now it's questioning, now I start questioning the process. Why am I in a process that's going to lead me to an output that I do not want to end at?
Sure.
Right? Because it's
Yeah.
if you think about it, waking up every day, going to a lecture, going to an exam room, right? Putting in effort in something that you no longer believe in, right? I'm a belief-driven person, right? If I do anything, either I feel I can add value or I can make an impact, right? And if I feel that my belief is not in line with what I'm doing, it really kills the flow of whatever it is that I'm doing, right? So now, if I did not believe that I honestly wanted the end result, why am I starting the process? Because the process is gonna lead me there. Why do I keep investing in it every single morning, right? And this becomes evident when there's pressure. You know, when everything is going great and it's not an inconvenience to you, it's easy to just let things slide. But now when the level of challenge becomes higher, it not only tests your capability, but it also tests your will, right? Because I think that a lot of people have capabilities, right? They have what some call potential to do certain things, but without a will, you cannot access that potential. If you're not willing, you will not invest in it, right? And once someone loses the drive or someone loses the will, it's over. It's just a matter of time before results actually show that the will is gone.
And
Because
on
yeah,
yes, you were saying?
yeah. So because like when things get challenging, right, you can either push forward or step back. And pushing forward, you push forward knowing that there is a cost to it, right? Whether it's a time cost, whether it's an emotional cost, whether it's a mental cost, but there's a cost to it. And it's going to come back to, are you willing to incur that cost? And so now, when I was not willing to incur the cost, that's when I started questioning, then what would I really want to incur the cost for? And it led me to reflect to say like, okay, there's a disconnect here. There's a disconnect between what I'm working towards and where I want to end up.
Now you mentioned something that is usually not in the forefront of conversations when it comes to the student environment, and that is incurring the cost of something. With any field, and you know this, Peng, with any field, whether it's accounting, whether it's engineering, whether it's medicine, there's a cost to pay. There's a cost to pay for not seeing your family for months on end. There's a cost to pay for, trying to modify your social life so that you're able to go through your coursework. There's a cost to your sleep sometimes, if you do it right. So, and you also tied it with something that is not often spoken about. We get told, okay, it's good to have a career in this field and all of that, and each to their own. Everyone has their own reason while doing it. But also as well, the why exactly do you do it? That's the thing that is going to come through on those days where you haven't slept quite well, on those days where you haven't seen your family, on those days where, you all of your money you spent it on your project or whatever that you're doing at school, and you're just living off noodles, all of that,
Yeah.
because it happens. It
It
happens.
happens. I mean, it's a reality.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So yeah, it's very it's very crucial, and I'm happy that you mentioned that as well, because I see a lot of people. You can see that they're going through it, and you can see that it's not there anymore. It's dead in their eyes, but they don't want to talk about it. And I understand there's a lot of sensitivity because some of us come from backgrounds where the education is supposed to be the thing that frees our families. Yeah. So, how did you then the decision making process to say, okay, now I've established that this is not something that I'm willing to incur the cost for, and two, even though it's great, even though it's wonderful, even though I'm getting all this prestige, here's where I want to go. You mentioned also mentors. So the decision process to say, okay, I'm looking towards entrepreneurship. What are the things that can make it happen? How did you walk through that?
I mean, for me, I reflect a lot, right? So I just have like here on the table, these are like journals that I reflect in, right?
Yeah.
So there's like one for each area of life. There's one for business, there's one for academics, there's one for me as an individual, so I reflect a lot. So whenever I like I try to make it a habit to reflect, right? So I can start seeing a trend in my behavior and my thoughts, right? So like right now, when you have an idea or a thought, it's easy to, oh, this is a thought. And then the next day you have another idea, or the next day you have another idea. But if you are writing all those thoughts down, you'll actually see a trend, right? You will see, for me, it was more of, I don't understand it. Sometimes I don't sleep working on a project, right? That's not related to school, but related to what I believe is gonna fulfill me, right? And I don't sleep. Like I think the longest I've gone working on something was like when I worked to try and create a website from start to finish in like 8 to 12 hours, because the next day I was going to a function where I knew I was gonna network with people and I'd want to refer them to my website, right? And even after all of that, at the end of it, I did not feel, oh, this is dragging, this is painful, and all that. What I felt was a sense of achievement, a sense of, you did this. It gave me that adrenaline kick to say, like, you did it, right? And sometimes committing, even if it's 2 hours to something else, feels like I've given it my whole day. These are evidence signs that are there in our everyday. There are people
Yeah.
that you meet that when you speak with them, you could speak on hours, right? And not even feel like you spoke for hours. And then there's some people that are there for 3 minutes and you feel like when am I leaving this place? Right.
Yeah.
So for me, that it sort of channeled my decision making, because I was put in a position where now I had to be real with it. I could no longer mask my lack of will to pursue this thing. under high academic achievement, right? I could no longer mask it. I couldn't hide it because the marks were starting to crumble now, and it was becoming very clear where my priorities were, right? And then in that moment, you choose, right? What am I going to do, right? And I think I got to a point where I isolated every other factor and focused on me, right? And I think one key thing for me is a reflection I had on death, right? I know it sounds a bit dark, but I
Yeah.
literally just reflected on what would happen if I died. Like, just ask myself the question, what would happen if I died? And follow through. Not just ask the question, what would happen if I died? Like, actually follow through to say who would cry, who would not, who would be at the funeral, what would happen, right? And one of the key things that I took out of that was that life would go on, right? So if I die now, the traffic is still gonna keep moving if traffic is moving, right? Only people around me, like only my immediate circle, will be largely affected. And then the extended circle will be affected to a certain extent. But give it 2, 3, 4 months, a year, it's done. And now, after knowing that my life could just vanish from the space in such a short space of time, then I asked myself, what am I living for? Right. And towards the end of the reflection, I posed a question to myself to say, if it were to be that when you die, you get trapped in a replay of your life from start to finish, would you be a corpse that's always wishing, oh, I should have done this, oh, I should have done that? Or would you be the one that's smiling, right? And be like, obviously, that's the right thing to do. Oh, I did this. I did not hold myself back. I did not deny myself this. No, I actually went for my dreams. Yes, I failed, but like either way, whether you succeed or fail in life based on your standards, not other people's standards, but whether you succeed or fail, at some point we're all gonna die. So
True.
even if you mess up, it's okay. You won't have to live with your mess forever. And even if you succeed, it's still okay because you won't live with your success forever.
Sure.
But whatever it is, make sure that if you were to be trapped in a replay of your life, you would be happy with how it played out. Not want to change or edit anything. Not want to feel like you left something unsaid, a door unopened, when you thought you had the key. So if you believe that I can make it there, you have an obligation to yourself to test it. And so that fueled my decision making to say, I want more out of life than what other people want of me. And even though I might be the only one that sees it, that sees where I want to go, who I want to be, and the impact I want to make in the world, it's okay for everyone not to see it. So long as I see it, I'm gonna pursue it, right? Because there are a lot of people who pursued what they were after. And sometimes you have to make peace with the fact that it's not a short game. Sometimes it's a long game. Sometimes it will take you 10 years, 20 years, 30 years to get to the point where you want to get to, right? But making peace with that to say, am I willing? If this were not to work out, would I be happy? So if I said, because now the choice was a career I did not have an interest in and doing something that's perceived to be high risk, right? But something I learned is that entrepreneurs don't see risk as risk. They just see it as an opportunity, right? Only people who are not entrepreneurial see it as a risk because they're like, oh, that's a gamble, that's risky. But when you're doing it, you're like, yo, I'm gonna do this and it's gonna be great, right?
Yeah.
So do I want to thrive in an environment I don't want to be in, right? Do I want to be someone who's living to the expectations of others? Or do I want to pursue my own journey and meet my own expectations, even if it's at the expense of others' expectations? Because I can tell you now, there are people I've spoken to, because I also consulted with my lecturers as well, asking them why they were in the lecturing space. And one of them told me that, well, For them, they came to lecturing because corporate sucks. They went into corporate, they found out that the dream was not what they were sold, and they were like, well, I might as well do something with the degree, and they went back to lecture. Right. And now I pictured that being me, to say this person only discovered when they were in corporate. I discovered when I'm here. Am I going to be ignorant and push forward? And then only at the end come back and say, well, actually, I should have just done this. But I think, so with me, I sort of consulted myself and other people, right? But remember, at the end of the day, even if you consult 1,000 people, the decision rests with you.
Sure.
And it's okay for 1,000 people to say, well, that is wrong. And you say, well, I'm going to do it anyways. Because there are popular examples that are given. Walt Disney was fired because they said he lacked creativity. I mean, Einstein was told that he was a retard. Right? Like,
Man.
there are people that have proven against the norm. People that first came with the theory that gravity keeps us down. There are people that got killed because they said the earth was round and not flat. Right? And I'm fortunate enough because I'm not dying for what I believe. I'm not dying for it.
Excellent.
All I need to do is pursue
Yeah.
it. No one's going to kill me for it. Right? But if I don't pursue it, I'm going to die. I might be breathing, but I'll literally be dead.
Yeah.
Because there's a difference between existing and living. I want to live.
Sure.
I don't want to exist. I don't want to be one off. I want to make an impact. And sometimes what's at the table before you is what it's the cards you were given. But I think some say play with the cards you were dealt. Look, if I don't like the cards, I might as well stand up and go to another table. What's keeping me at the table?
Yeah.
That's the question. What's keeping me at the table? Sure, play the cards life deals at you. But first figure out if you want to play that game. Maybe poker was just not your thing. Maybe you should just go to the golf course.
Exactly. Yeah. Sure.
So that's what sort of fueled my decision making.
And I can imagine this was an intense thinking exercise. This was
It was very
Yeah.
intense. I mean, it was very intense because it was not something that happened in a day. Right? There's some of the thoughts, like from the point I eventually decided to make a switch, and from the point I started like questioning everything, it was months. Right? It was months. Because now you're still in denial. You're like, oh, wait, what if, let me just try it again. Maybe it's because I didn't try it enough and stuff. But then over time, then I found out that, look, this is not what you want to do. There are things that literally make me feel alive. There are some conversations, there are some topics, when you just mention the word, my eyes light up. And then there are some things where it's just the same. Being able to do something doesn't mean that it's what you want to do. It's the same as having a talented athlete who's really great and is good with athletics, but he doesn't want to play athletics. They can run, they can win races, they can get the medal, but the medal means nothing to them. Maybe sometimes what means more to that athlete are the sketches and drawings that they make in their spare time, and they feel, look, I want to be an artist one day. But then the whole world is saying, but I don't understand. Why would you want to be an artist when you're a gold medalist, when you run the fastest and all of that? And that's when it's tough. That's when it's tough to make a switch. When people don't understand why you are leaving something that they assume you are excelling in and you are good at. Without understanding the long-term consequences, to say in the long run, you won't sustain that.
Yeah.
You won't sustain it. You will burn out.
And that's something that I've seen a lot of smart, capable people, go into fields and they're doing exceptionally well. And there comes a moment in time where they're like, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm leaving everything. And everyone goes crazy and like, why are you doing this? Why, what's happening with you? And, for me as well, I had a sort of similar journey as well, where I had to reconcile why exactly do I do what I do? What is it about what I do that I don't like? Sometimes, because we're talking about the student to entrepreneur journey here, sometimes you as a student, as an individual, as an academic, and all of that, sometimes you need to, and I like the fact that you reflect. I'm really going to implement that idea of having more than one journal. It's really great, man. So the ability to reflect and say, you know what, this is exactly what I'm going to do, because I saw a lot of people that are engineers in class, but you can find them on a Saturday, hours on end playing on a guitar, and they're good. They're exceptionally well, playing on a guitar. And there are practicalities that come to it as well. You can't just say to someone, of course, like, just jump into the field of being a musician, without a plan and something. Sometimes you just need to leave everything.
Yeah,
But I think one lesson that we can take away from this is that the need for constant reflection, the need for constant questioning of, why is it exactly that I'm doing this, and why do I stay up at night when I'm playing the guitar as opposed to studying my work, and it also applies sometimes. I want to give people the picture of, sometimes you do love the field that you work in. Like the field that I'm in now, I do love it, but there are certain aspects of it that I don't like, or
yeah,
there are certain things that the field doesn't address in my personality. So the reason why I do things like this is to address that creative side, to address that, because there's a logical side to me, there's a creative side to me. So to address that. So another
yeah.
component as well is being good at what you do and honing that skill. So let's go back to the time you've made the decision. Now you're making the switch. You know, now you decided from a student in accounting science. Now I'm a student in accounting and business management. Now you're there. There's an author, Carl Newport, Professor Carl Newport. He says, "Be so good that they can't ignore you." What was the process now when you were saying, "Okay, now I'm paying you in a new field. Now I need to get so good that they can't ignore me"? What was the thought process when you got into the new field?
I mean, the first thing was, now you have what you want. You can't fail. Or not that
Yeah.
you can't fail, but in a sense that I put myself under an obligation to say, you've gotten what you want. This is what you thought was the missing piece. Then make sure it really shows, right? I put myself under that obligation to say, this is what you said you want. So you better make sure that you see it through, right? Like, what you just mentioned now, the words, be so good at what you do that no one can ignore you, right? I think now I started pursuing what Robin Sharma refers to as a journey to like mastery, right? Try to master what you do, being good at it, because I think competence drives whatever it is you do. Like, being competent in something is very important, right? It's very important. I'm someone who has an achiever mindset. I want to achieve. I want to excel at what I do. So that also was something that came into play, even with academics and as well as business as well, right? To say, now that I'm making the switch, I need to make sure that it's also an informed switch, because I'm not going to switch to something that I think that I'm just trying it out, right? I'm trying it out and I'm not really certain if I want to see it through or stick it through, because these are long-term choices. These are
True.
not, it's not a choice that you just make and stuff. That's why the choice was not drop out and go full on into entrepreneurship. The choice was study, but study what is aligned with where you want to go. That way you still get to study, you still get to expose yourself to students, right? And the academic space. But when it's in line with where you want to go, it makes it a bit better, right? Because now you see where it fits into the picture, right? So I think for me, when I did the switch, I put an obligation on myself to say, you must make sure that this works. You must see to it. You must hold yourself accountable. Not that it will be easy, not that it will be easier, it might even be tougher, right? But make sure that whatever it is that you do it, right? Because I think for me, the switch was more in a mindset, right? Because I see a distinction between two sides you can take. There's being a student who's an entrepreneur and being an entrepreneur who's a student. For me, that's two different mindsets. There are people that see themselves as students who are entrepreneurs, and the people who see themselves as entrepreneurs who are students. Now, the main difference in that is that a student who's an entrepreneur, the student is the main. The entrepreneur is the side of the plus. Meaning that if it comes to a point of compromise and it's dead and it's like, who dies? They're going to say entrepreneurship dies because they're a student and an entrepreneur secondary. And then there's the entrepreneur who's a student. Now, entrepreneurship is a primary and the student is secondary. Now, meaning that if it comes to having to pivot your strategy, you would say, okay, can I still be a student and can I adjust my student life to conform to my entrepreneurship life, as opposed to adjusting the entrepreneurship life to conform to the student life? Now, a student who's an entrepreneur will work around, well, I won't be available until after a certain time or after this assessment. An entrepreneur who's a student will make the assessment be scheduled in such a way that it works with. Do you get what I'm saying? Right.
Major moves, yes.
So for me, that was one of the things that also had to change. So it was not only a structural change of just a simple switch of degrees. It was a change in the degree to align it to the route where I wanted to end up in. And it also was a shift in mindset to say, know who you are, right? Know who you are, because once you know who you are, then you know where to put your focus, right? Managing your focus as opposed to trying to manage your time. Because if you try to manage your time, it's a different thing to managing your focus. If your focus is on the right things, the priorities, then the time becomes easier to manage because you know this should get this time, this should get this time.
Yeah.
Right. And now there's something that you won't even allocate time to because they're not in your focus area. But when you try to manage your time, you try to get everything on your schedule into the schedule without questioning what should or should not be there. Right. So for me, it was more than just a degree shift. It was a degree shift. It was a mindset shift. It was a commitment shift to say, who am I? And this is reflected in how I engage with people, how I engage with fellow students, how I engage with academic staff, how I engage with people in corporate, with entrepreneurs. I don't go introducing myself as, hi, I'm Phenyo. I'm a student at Wits University.
Sure.
No, I introduce myself because that is where my core is. And I introduce myself, my work, my competence. Because
and just so by the way, I'm a student.
And by the way, the student is by the way.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm a student, right? Because the main thing is what I'm putting forward to you is who I am, right? No one will go and ask, let's say, for instance, if Bill Gates was to, and I'm picking him because he's recently been on the news, right?
Oh, yes.
If Bill Gates were to enroll for a course with Harvard, and then he had a deliverable to bring forward, no one will ask him, do you think you can manage it with your coursework, right? They're gonna interact with him on a level of competence. Can he deliver? Has he delivered, right? So now when you know the identity you have, it also phases into how you introduce yourself to people and how you sell yourself. So I'm not selling the student brand. I'm selling Phenyo Mabokela. I'm selling the entrepreneur. I'm selling the leader. I'm selling the high impact individual who happens to be a student, right? Sure. Because now if you base it on the student, now already, if you know that this person is a student who's an entrepreneur, if push comes to shove and there are exams, your business will not get the service it needs because this person is going to put the book before your business, right?
Yeah. It's such, someone might be listening there and say, no, I can do this. I can be a student and I can be an entrepreneur. I can be a student first, entrepreneur first. Just to give a backstory, I had the same similar experience, but I was student first because I still wanted to be an engineer, and out of necessity because I didn't have money. I'm
Oh,
gonna say hello to the low
okay.
one.
He's in the bedroom
Yeah. Yeah, the
working
pleasures of
from home.
lockdown. The pleasures of lockdown. The little ones are always going to be a feature in the show. They should have their own show, I believe. The little ones should have their own
Yeah.
reality TV shows, like what we are doing to our people when they are here. So,
Yeah.
when it comes to that, I had a stint of freelancing, and with freelancing as well, like I was doing it out of necessity. I didn't have money, to fund my groceries and everything like that. So I had to do that.
Mm.
So a time would come where opportunities would come through and people would be like, hey, we need this, we need that, we need that. And then tests would come through, like a test week. And now I need to send messages to people to say, hey man, I'm sorry, exams, I'm sorry, tests. And they'd be so angry. They're like, man, you're really killing us. Like this is a major thing that we're doing. So
Mm.
that is very crucial. And I think more than anything, that identity shift, because also as well as an individual, you need to have that identity shift to say, this is who I am. And even if you don't decide to be an entrepreneur and you decide to be something else, that identity shift is really crucial. So
True.
yeah. So when it comes to entrepreneurship, with school, you have a feedback loop, right? You do something
Mm-hmm.
and then you get your report card, right? You do something, you get your
Yeah.
your your academic transcript. So with entrepreneurship, it's a bit open-minded, it's a bit free, everything goes. What are some of the structures that you put in place in order for you to know that, okay, I'm on the right path, I'm doing well?
I mean, for me, there's the external measure, and then there's the internal measure, right? So the internal measure is the goals I set. So, for instance, if I say by the end of the year, I want to have serviced this amount of clients, right? Or at the end of the year, I want to have raised this amount of money in revenue. Or I want to see myself having moved from this phase of my business to this phase. Let's say, for instance, a current goal that I have now is how can I move from working in the business to working on the business, right? So I released like a round of internships before lockdown. And unfortunately, lockdown happened just when I was in the process, right, of
Yeah,
getting candidates. And now it really switched everything around. But those are more internal measures, the goals that I set. And when I don't achieve those goals, it's immediate feedback to me. But then there's also the feedback that by being in a freelance or an entrepreneurial space, you will get feedback from the people you service, right?
sure.
If someone walks through your door and you service them and they walk out and they never come back again, it's not because they are busy, it's not because they don't have time. You just did not do the right thing, right?
Yeah, sure.
So I sort of take a bit of both because the work I do, it's largely in marketing, right? So this could be the design aspect of it, it could be the consulting aspect of it. And so with that, when I do a work, I rely on the feedback I get from people, right? Are they impressed, right? And for me, it's I represent it graphically, right? To say there's a horizontal line which is someone's expectation, and just above that horizontal line, there's another graph that goes vertically upwards that is above expectation, right? So I always aim to say above. How can I exceed people's expectation? Right? Because when you exceed someone's expectation, you get feedback. When
Sure.
you do not meet the expectation, you also get feedback, right? When you just do just about enough, sometimes you don't get any feedback at all, right?
Yeah.
So if I constantly hit above the expectation, then some people will go like, wow, this is really great. Recently I had an event that I was branding, and they sent me a message saying, look, where can we provide feedback? Where can we give you a review? We really want to give you a good review, right?
Yeah.
And for me, that's feedback, right? And then I also go back to people I've worked with in the past, right? This is external, right? It's not my own reflections on it and stuff, but it's also external to say, I go ask people. Sometimes I call someone who I worked with 3 months back, or 4 months back, or a year ago, and I ask them, remember we did some work, and actually one of them actually told me about this. They're like, Phenyo, this is the fourth evaluation you're sending me, right? So
Yeah.
I check on people at different points in time. So I check with them immediately after the service. I check with them a couple of weeks after the service, and then a couple of months after the service. And then if I remember a year after, right, then to see, do they still hold the same view, right? Because if during the service, excuse me, if during the service they say, okay, this is great, and then after the service they're like, nah, you see the gap. If during the service and after the service they're like, yeah, but a couple of months later they're like, actually, nah, it means probably you got them at a time where they did not have any better alternative. But once they found a better alternative, then they sort of saw that what you were offering was not really the best thing out there, right? So I do take feedback from people that I work with, from people that I service, and also then reflect myself to say, based on this, what really happened. So sometimes I do just random evaluation checks, right? Not only on the business, but also on myself as an individual. Like I can go on Instagram and just put up a poll and say, am I a good listener? Yes, no. And then open another poll. Am I open-minded? Yes, no. And then open another poll, right? It sounds like stuff that's really random and stuff, but people actually start to participate in that. And then also you have to factor in that not everyone then knows you, right? So you have to group them. What is the feedback from people that don't know me personally? What is the feedback from people that know me personally? And then the ones that don't know you at all, those you leave out, right? You leave out because in terms of that, they don't have context to who you are, right? What they're feeding off is basically just the images they see and videos and stuff. So it tells you something, but really it's not something that's concrete that you can say, wow, this is the effect I'm having on people, right? So I think for me, it's evaluating the external evaluations I get from people, and also my own introspections, right, that I make on it. And then I use that to try and move forward to say, am I on the right track? Am I doing this? And also like the thing I mentioned earlier about mentorship, right? I mean, mentorship doesn't always have to be formal, right? There's actually a really great entrepreneur that I really bother, right? I bother this guy. It's Kanyisile Madong. Look, I bother
Shout
him.
out.
He knows I bother him, right? And probably when he hears this, he'll probably laugh because he knows I bother him, right? I
Yeah.
bother him because he's a mentor, right? It's not something where we had an agreement, sat down, listen, you're my mentor, I'm your mentee, and stuff like that. But it's someone that I know when I want to hear the brutal truth, right? Not what I want to hear. I go to him and I say, this is the idea I have, this is what I think and stuff. What do you think? Right? I go to him and I tell him, this is the challenge I have. How do you think I can best go about it? Right? And with the mentors, not always them giving you a solution. Sometimes there's something that you need a perception change, or maybe you need a question. Sometimes the feedback I get from him, he asks me a question, and I have to come back with a response to that question. And in looking for the response to the question, I actually find what I actually had asked him, right? And so he's one of the people that I consider mentors, right? And the feedback you get from those people, because those are people you trust with your goals. So if I have a goal, I can put it to him, look, this is my challenge. This is where I want to get to, right? Please hold me accountable or help me get there. Now, whenever I go off that path, that someone is able to see, Phenyo, is this in line with what you said you wanted to do? Is this in line with what you said your focus area is for the next 3 months, right? And so that is, for me, that is how I gather the feedback, right? It's both from people I work with, both from people I service, and then those people that service me, if I may say, put it that way. People that service you. These are your friends, these are your mentors. It's people that literally they service because they know you from a point of view that you're not able to see yourself. They can see the change in your behavior that sometimes you don't even see. They can see the change in your focus. I mean, one individual once asked me, they asked me, they're like, Phenyo, are you still a student? Right? This is the question they asked me. Right?
Sure.
And they knew very well I'm a registered student. They knew very well, but they were asking that question. And that question led me to introspect because it showed me that what they were trying to bring forward to me was that my actions were not in line with what a student would normally do or how a student would conduct themselves. So now that led me to reflect on priorities to say, am I in a position compromising this area of my life to such an extent that it's no longer visible that I am a student? So that is, for me, that's how I get the feedback, are you on the right track?
Yeah. And I think that's the one thing I like about entrepreneurship. If maybe it's not a long-term goal for you or you've never tried it before, at least try it once, sell something, do something on the side. The reason why I like about it is because the feedback is almost immediate. And the
Yeah,
feedback is like, numbers don't lie. And it's especially like if you're selling something or if you're doing something, you almost need to have a data-driven approach. And I love the fact that you also put out polls on Instagram to say, I'm gathering the data. This is the cluster of data from people that I know. This is the cluster of data for people that I don't know. And entrepreneurship is like that. You're going to get feedback from people that you don't know. You're going to get feedback from people that really care about you and really want you to do well. And that's why I say to people, at least they should try it at least once, even though it's not a long-term goal, at least once, because you get to see a person that you've never saw before. You get to see a whole new you,
true.
as opposed to just being a student. The problem with just being a student is if you're the best student and you probably the smartest person or the highest scoring person in the room, there's a danger that comes with that. And I see it a whole lot because I interact with a lot of people. That danger is with being the smartest person in the room, you become the ceiling of thought. You become the ceiling of mindset. You become the ceiling of innovation and everything else. And you become the limiter to your potential. So what ends up happening is you're in a group of people that are just the yes men. People that are saying, oh, you're so good. You scored 100% on that test. Oh, you did this, oh, you're so good. There's no one person that's going to say, dude, you need to work on your social skills, man. I understand that you're a good student, but dude, the way that you greeted that guy or the way that you conducted yourself in that group meeting wasn't okay. There isn't a way to quite handle that. And that's the danger of being a student. Whereas an entrepreneur, you get into a conference, you're the second last worst person in the room. And like you start, your palms get sweaty. You can't even hold a handshake right. And then you have to go back and like, hey, maybe the handshake. I need to improve on the handshake. Yeah. So,
I mean, like, sorry to interrupt you there, because it's
no
really
problem.
a high value that you're adding here with that, because like what you're saying about the ceiling, it's like you get a winner's circle, right? But remember, the winner's circle is so close that it sort of blinds you from what's actually happening outside the circle, right? And few people want to leave the winner's circle because it's a circle that's surrounding you, but it's also limiting you. And the cheers are so loud that when you try to walk out of the winner's circle outside your comfort zone to a place that you are not the it thing or you're not the it person, when you try to journey to that, there are no more cheers, right? There are no more cheers in that space. You're going to an arena where you're not the hottest thing since sliced bread. And that's sometimes the challenge. And people don't want to let go of that fame. They don't want to let go of that power and I say it's a power because it allows them to influence. They don't want to let go of being the one who has the final say. And once you find yourself in a space where you are the smartest person in the room, then they say that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong space because you're not challenging yourself. My
Yes.
view is that when you feel like you are falling short, that's the best place to be because it means you're not in your comfort zone. You can only fall short of what you've not yet achieved, meaning that you're working towards something. But if you always feel like you have everything and you're not trying to challenge yourself to do more outside of that, then you won't grow. And entrepreneurship is the best place to grow because on the outside, it looks glamorous. On the inside, it's filled with fridges, noodles, unpaid bills, startup that was going to be the best thing ever. And now you find that it's not the best thing ever. Ideas which you thought were your own creative ideas and nothing like that has been done. And then you hit one Google button and it goes out of the window. Right. And the feedback, like you said, it's immediate. I mean, if you're listening to this now, and I want you to think about something, right? So do you really understand that when someone has to commit a resource to something, their perception changes? Like, I think to think about is, would you pay a subscription to some of your friends? If you had to pay for your friends, would you pay a subscription for all of your friends, or would you pay for some of them? Now, if you're already thinking about some friends you wouldn't pay for, you started realizing that they're not adding value to you, or they're not adding a value you're willing to pay for, right? And now, as easy as it is to see with other people, now think about it this way. Would your friends subscribe to your friendship? Would they pay you to be a friend? Now, that is essentially entrepreneurship. You have a service that you're offering or a product that you're offering, and you need to get people to buy it. And people only release their money if they're willing to. It's the story of a hairdresser who's promised, listen, look, we like your work and stuff. Start your own thing. Leave this salon and start your own thing. We're going to be there for you. And once you go start your own thing, they're not there because then they realize, well, you're not that great at what you're doing. Right.
And you find that out.
Yeah, because like you said, the feedback is immediate. So I encourage everyone to participate and develop an entrepreneurial mindset. Like, an entrepreneurial mindset will be useful to you whether you apply it to entrepreneurship or you apply it to your workplace or you apply it to your personal life, right? I mean, imagine if people had surveys to evaluate what good of a friend they were or what good of a mentor they were, and like that would really make the world such a better place because people would know the truth, right? And if you put that question out and bring it back in, the question of whether someone would pay for your friendship, whether someone would pay for your relationship, whether someone would pay for you as an individual, if someone had to fund your existence, would they fund it? Like, if they said we need to fund someone's existence, this person is very important to this community, would you be among the list of people that are not taken out of the community? Are you part of the solution or are you part of the problem? Because if you're part of the solution, you will always be in the list to say, no, like you can take everyone, but not this person.
It's a concept I got reconciled with today, and that is being a linchpin, like, someone that is really crucial in a society. Like, something happens and they're like, no, you need to get Phenyo on this, or
True.
It's not going on if Phenyo is not there, and that's really something. And I like the fact that you're saying that you can transpose that entrepreneurial mindset into anything that you do, also as a student as well. Are you just a student just sits in class and you're at the back and you're not doing anything, and you're just there. So there's an exercise that I also like doing. Like, I like looking at my student finances a lot, like my statements. And I imagine for you is your bill of statements when it comes to your business, right? And when you see the numbers there, when you see, okay, this is what I'm owing to the school, and then you take that number and then you divide it to an hourly rate. Say, if you say that you're charging per hourly rate, and you take whatever number that is on there on your student account and you say, this is my hourly rate. This is what I'm worth, you know. And then you look at your activities and you think, am I really worth this? What's like is what I'm doing. That's why like when I get distracted on the phone, you know, there's a constant reminder to say, hey dude, is this, legit the thing that is in your billing,
Yeah.
your hourly rate? Yeah. But I never thought of it in the in the matter of, as a member of society, as a friend, as as an active citizen. And that's really great. We need to think, especially now that this is happening, a lot of people are discovering, hey, in terms of a crisis, I'm not quite helpful. I would need to help more. And I see that you do this a lot with your philanthropic and charity work that you do as well. So that's a really great message to jump forward to say, what value are you worth? Yeah. So Phenyo, it's been a good conversation. I'm just gonna switch it up a little bit with quick fire questions, and I'm gonna throw at you.
Okay.
Nah? One word. Now, I've seen that you're someone that gives very elaborate and very value filled answers. So I'm going to challenge you to just one word.
Okay.
One word. Okay.
Comfort
First
zone,
thing I
stepping out.
stepping out of the comfort zone. Yes. What is the first thing I do when I wake up?
Reflect.
Reflect. If I were president, I would do this one thing.
Whew, fire questions indeed. Uh, One word. Redefine.
Redefine. Okay. I'll go back to that in the end. LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Okay. One tool you can't live without?
Google Calendar.
Ah, yes. One thing South African higher education needs?
Entrepreneurial thinking.
Ah, two words. I'll let you go on that one. Uh, I'll let you go on that
Entrepreneurship.
one. Entrepreneurship. Okay. A quote that you live by. Okay, this of course is going to be more than one word.
Live for others. That way you have no life of your own to lose when you die.
Sure. Powerful. That's a great pleasure. Now I want to go back to this one. When you said if you're a South African person, you are to redefine. In one sentence, what would you redefine?
I would redefine my citizens' view of education and the sources used, or the sources or tools used to acquire it.
Great stuff. Sure. Thanks a lot, Phenyo. Like I've learned so much from you in this episode. It's really hard to keep up with some of the things that you say as well. Like you need some repeating. I'm gonna watch this again
I'm
and
definitely
reflect
gonna
and
gonna watch it again. Hey, I'm definitely gonna
yeah,
watch it again and just listen to it.
yeah. So it's been a great pleasure. The little ones are having their fun time too. It's been
Yo,
a great
like
pleasure.
I'm like at the end,
At
the
the-
pleasures of
they
lockdown.
love
Eh?
they love doing that at the final end where you're about to finish a project and then they come through. But it's great with the loved ones in the background. So I just wanted to say thank you for availing your time. Thank you for sharing your experiences. Thank you for also sharing the good, the bad, the gray of where you've been and your journey. And I feel like we need more we need more real perception of what it's like to be an entrepreneur and the reason why to do it, not for the fancy car, but for the purpose, and also with careers as well. And I believe like a lot of the knowledge that you shared in entrepreneurship can be transferred to people that maybe like me want to venture into a particular career. I just want to say all the best. I know now you're running a marketing agency. All the best with that. And we need more people that are like you. We need more young people that are going forward. The reason why I asked the president question is that I believe the next president is living among this age group that is changing the world and is changing everything in South Africa. Thanks a lot, brother, and good luck with everything. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much. I was honored to be here, and I really enjoyed the conversation. Really insightful. The 5 questions really outside the comfort zone, but fun nonetheless. And
yeah,
man, I wish you all the best with what you're doing as well. I think it's a really great platform, and yeah.
Thanks a lot, brother. Cheers. Enjoy time with the
Cheers.
little ones.
I definitely will. I definitely will.
Sharp, sharp.